Welcome to Only in Santa Clara County, a podcast aimed at demystifying and democratizing the process of local government and civic participation in the County of Santa Clara. My name is Ellina Yin, and I will be your host. So, before we jump into this episode, I wanted to take a moment to share about how we got here. For new listeners, for my OG listeners, let's take a walk, a stroll down memory lane. So, this podcast, this project, is a part of Only in San Jose. San Jose's first civic education and media organization. The concept of Only in San Jose, OSJ, came in 2018 when I started following the San Jose Planning Commission. And learning to navigate that process with no instruction manual wasn't exactly rocket science, but neither was it easy. It was kind of like reading one of those IKEA furniture assembly manuals where there are no words, only it was slightly worse because it didn't even come with that special IKEA hardware. I looked it up and it's called the Allen key. So, after weathering through this process for a year and a half, I came up with the idea of a podcast. So, this is like an Allen key to the civic process. And this was in 2019. And I applied and received a small grant of $5,000 from this fellowship called the Knight Foundation 880 Emerging City Champions Fellowship. And the grant was to launch our podcast. And we launched the Only in San Jose podcast a year later in 2020. I mean, it was the year that changed everything about how we interacted with local government. And what I mean by that is, for the first time in US history, in local government history, because of the pandemic, everything was online. So all of a sudden, you didn't have to take a half day in the middle of the week on a Tuesday, drive to City Hall, find parking, and physically go into City Council chambers if you wanted to participate, say, in public comment. So for the first time in history, we could do it online. And the timing of this moment, the podcast was launched in the summer of 2020 in June. And we were in the middle of the Black Lives Matter movement. And it occurred during most cities' budget process because most cities have a fiscal year of July 1st to June 30th. So, for also the first time, people were like, what is this? What is this process? How does public comment work? What is the city manager, etc. So OSJ, we hit the ground running and met with that moment the best that we could. We did an excellent podcast episode on the role of a city manager and what the budget process was like. And, that's what we hope to do here, the exact same thing for the County of Santa Clara. So for the first few years after that initial grant in 2019, I self-funded the rest of the work, the research, the writing, taught myself editing. For those OG listeners, the sound quality has much improved since the first episode. Thank you for hanging out with me all this time. I also utilized my graphic design and marketing background to create what we have before us today. I've chosen not to have any ads and really any ask of my audience these last entire, 5 years, in part because I wanted to see if there was a real need and desire for what I was producing. I wasn't sure at the time if this was going to be a short-term project or what. But a year into the work, I was approached by the city of San Jose to turn what I had created into a full civics masterclass curriculum, which was amazing. And I was so thrilled to do that. The Civics Masterclass is now live on the City of San Jose's website. It's free, it's in 3 languages, and you can find it in our show notes. And for those of you who are not in the City of San Jose, I would still encourage you to check out the civics curriculum, the Civics Masterclass, because it can probably still be applied to your city. Though the processes might be a little bit different, the rules are generally the same. And also, if it's something that you find really useful, it's something that you can also advocate to your own city, to your own city council members to have for you, because we all deserve it. Everybody deserves a free manual on how to democratically participate in our local government systems. Now, in the last 5 years, we've had a total of over 5,000 listeners. Listeners have contacted me to tell me that they were inspired to join a border commission, that they're bringing this content to their schools. Y'all, and 40% of our listeners are under 27. That's Gen Z, and that is a badge of honor for me to have. I am so proud of the level of civic engagement and participation I've seen from our youth listeners. Just 2 to 3 years into the work, we actually started, to get requests to cover the County of Santa Clara, which, to be honest, I was a little bit resistant to due to capacity and funding. But after a lot of encouragement, a break between some other projects, I decided to finally give the people what they wanted. And here we are. And this time, however, I do have an ask of you, my dear listeners. Please subscribe, hit that follow button wherever you get your podcasts. Write us a review, they really do matter. And I absolutely love reading them. And if you are so inclined and it's within your means, you can support our work via Patreon. You can find all of that in our show notes. Okay, so now on to the main act. So for season 1, we're going to go over a high-level review of Santa Clara County. We're going to cover county government, where the money comes from, the budget process, the board of supervisors, boards and commissions, and county departments. And before we get into our interview portion, I wanted to give a little bit of context on county governance structure. So, our government is structured into multiple layers, each with distinct responsibilities and powers. And, these broadly include, the national, federal government, state government, and local government. And both city and county governments are considered local governments. Now, California in particular is divided into 58 counties and has about 482 cities and 21 towns. The basic provisions for government in California counties are contained in the California Constitution and the California Government Code. It is vested by the legislature with the powers necessary to provide for the health and welfare of the people within its borders. Now, the specific organizational structure of a county in California will vary from county to county. The fundamental distinction between a county and a city, so counties lack broad powers of self-government that California cities have. For example, cities have broad revenue generating authority and counties do not. Unless restricted by a specific provision of the state constitution, the legislature may delegate to counties any of the functions which belong to the state itself. So you can think of counties as an extension of the state, in this case, the state of California. Conversely, the state may also take back to itself and resume the functions which it has delegated to counties. And the California Constitution recognizes two types of counties: general law counties and charter counties. So general law counties adhere to state law. And charter counties, on the other hand, have a limited degree of home rule. And home rule authority in the United States refers to the powers granted to local governments, such as cities, counties, and municipalities, to govern themselves independently of state government control. This authority allows local governments to pass laws, manage affairs, and make decisions on local issues without needing approval or intervention from the state legislature. Now, there are currently 44 general law counties and 14 charter counties, of which Santa Clara County is one of the 14. The California Constitution authorizes a county to make and enforce local ordinances as long as they don't conflict with general laws like the state constitution or federal constitution. A county also has the power to sue and be sued, purchase and hold land, manage or dispose of its properties, and levy and collect taxes authorized by the law. Many additional powers have been granted to counties by the legislature. The powers of the county can only be exercised by the Board of Supervisors or through officers acting under the authority of the board. And for those of you who are not as familiar with Board of Supervisors, we will have an episode on that, but you can also kind of think of them as like the city councils of cities. Now, I know that was a lot, and one of our goals here is to build a culture of civic participation and enable folks to discern for themselves. And to do that, we work really hard to provide folks with the basic foundational knowledge first. So you can find extra resources and links to everything I just shared in our show notes. Okay, so now that we've got something of a skeleton and structure, let's put some meat on these bones and get real. So, here to join us for this first season is Betty Duong. Betty has over a decade of experience working at the County of Santa Clara. She's also an attorney, and prior she was an attorney, and she started at the county over 10 years ago as the budget and policy director of the Office of Supervisor Cindy Chavez. Then she went on to become the manager of the Office of Labor Standards Enforcement. Then she led as a public information officer for the Office of Emergency Operations Center for the COVID-19 response, and so much more. And right now she is the chief of staff for Supervisor Cindy Chavez. Now, I interviewed Betty back in February of this year, and we do have to give a disclaimer that Betty is currently one of two candidates in the runoff for District 2 Board of Supervisor seat this upcoming November. And the other candidate for the runoff is Madison Nguyen. And but let it be known, for the record, only in San Jose, we are a civic education media organization. We are a fiscally sponsored nonprofit organization. So for the record, this is not an endorsement of any candidacy for the Board of Supervisors seat. Let's get on with the show. And I'm so excited for you all to meet and hear from Betty. We are just going to learn so much together. I am really looking forward to sharing this information with you and also hearing from you. So as we go through this each week, if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the comments, and I will work on maybe answering a few of them in following episodes. And you can also follow us on Instagram. It's only in SCC, so only in Santa Clara County in initial, so only in SCC. You can find us on Twitter, on Instagram. And to learn more in general about Only in San Jose, you can visit onlyinsj.org. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And now on to Betty. And Betty is going to share a little bit about herself.
Oh, well, it's thank you so much for having me. Thank you everyone for joining us today. So the county, like our family, like my roots with the county goes so far, but this is not an uncommon story at all. So my parents came to San Jose, Santa Clara County, as clients of the county's refugee resettlement program in the late 70s. And so they arrived as clients of the county. And all through the majority of my childhood, we relied on the county services, the county programming, the safety net services. I was born at Valley Medical Center, VMC, the county hospital. So were my sisters, and so the county has had such a significant presence in our lives. It's been so critical for where we are today. And the opportunity in 2013 to work at the county came up, and at that time I was a practicing attorney, and I really was just really interested in policy making and the parameters by which we were operating within. And that the significance of public policy being a social contract with its residents and its members, and being a process that should be owned as much as possible by our residents and by our community members, because it's our property taxes, it's our contributions that sustain the county organization, and its main function is to enhance the standard of living and quality of life for the residents of the county. So the opportunity came up with the election of Supervisor Cindy Chavez, and so I wanted to come work for her, knowing that she has had such a significant role in carving out the landscape of the city of San Jose, and her vision for a county that was going to be able to work for everybody was something that really appealed to me. And I knew that in this role with a board office with Supervisor Chavez, that I was going to be able to have a space to really advance the things that I cared about, that we both cared about. So a language access policy, accessible health services, more investments into communities and our most disproportionately impacted communities in the East San Jose side, east side of San Jose. So yeah, I came on board, and then I worked for a few years with Supervisor Chavez working on these issues. And then I had the opportunity to be the campaign manager for 2016's Measure A, the biggest and boldest affordable housing bond measure in our county. And so I took a leave of absence then as well to run the 2016 Measure A campaign. It needed a 2/3 majority to pass, 66.67%. We came in at 67.1%.
Wow.
And that resulted today into more than 4,000 units of new construction of affordable housing. Then when I came back, another opportunity came up where I was able to apply for and got the job of building the Office of Labor Standards Enforcement, the first county-based office of its kind. So I built that, and I'm so proud that that model that we created together with community, with our partners, has now been replicated in San Diego County and San Mateo County.
Wow.
Yeah, and then and then the pandemic hit. And I was activated in the Emergency Operations Center from day one, and I served in the Emergency Operations Center. My schedule was 10 days on, 3 days off, 10 days on, 3 days off. I did that for a little over a year, making sure that we responded. We had a proper response to this global pandemic, this once-in-a-lifetime global crisis. And my job was to make sure that information from the county at a time that was very scary, at a time of great misinformation, during a time where we were all sheltering in place, and access to accurate information was very limited and hard to tell sometimes. We had to make sure that all of the county's information, most recent updates, was being put out in real time in languages, that the county's threshold languages. And also that we were delivering PPE, personal protection equipment, to doors, to small businesses. We were delivering COVID vaccinations, also like testing appointments, groceries, feminine hygiene products. We were doing all of that during the COVID-19 crisis. And that's pretty much my 10-year journey right there.
What a way to, culminate that 10-year journey, because, we spend a lot of time, I think, absorbing stories of the future. And so we see and have been watching those apocalyptic scenes of breakouts and pandemics, and then it hit. And I was wondering, how much of that first response blueprint was there when you started the your role in that emergency response, kind of like a first responder, for a year?
Yeah.
How much was there for you to work with, and how much did you, there was no blueprint and you had to kind of put it together with the experts within the...
That's a great question. Yeah, so I would say half of it was blueprinted, because the county, one of the functions of the county is to operate the Office of Emergency Management. And so we had this built in. It's quite an operation that's already built in. And there's so many, they call it events, there's so many crises and disasters that they're managing on a daily basis, where most of them never see the light of day, or they don't reach us, they don't reach the general public, because it's being mitigated, or it was mitigated. Like, folks are on call 24/7. There's a whole radio dispatch center. Should the internet ever go down, we have these towers that put out radio frequency, and there's a whole operation set up for that. So it was my first time being a part of emergency response. So I had to rely. I mean, I didn't have that background, but there was this blueprint of how we internally organize ourselves and structure ourselves. But there are a couple of things that weren't included, right? Like, how do we approach language access? How do we make sure that information in Spanish, Vietnamese, Mandarin, Tagalog Hindi
Yeah.
were going out in real time. Where do we draw that talent from within the county or from within community?
Yeah.
So after the pandemic, after the initial emergency ordinance had been lifted, one of the assignments that I had in terms of the after action, we called it, was to write in a language access policy and a community engagement policy and protocol for our county's emergency operations.
Yeah.
So that piece wasn't there. Now it is. A lot of it was there based on just like decades of experience, and we continue to build on that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Thank you.
It must have been exciting, but also terrifying, because it was terrifying for a lot of people for that first year where we didn't really have the level of response that you're describing on the federal level.
Yeah.
And that was where we were getting a majority of our messaging until I remember like the county stepped in and they had their own information channels. That was really helpful as I was navigating that space, trying to take care of my parents during that time.
Yeah, just I remember setting up call centers overnight because people were calling in and they were looking for any number to reach a live person at the county. So our response was, let's just build a call center right now. And it was literally in 48 hours, we now had a call center that was answering calls 12 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah, and that call center role is really underappreciated. It's quite, I worked at a call center, one of my first jobs, and it was at a medical insurance claim. So a lot of people that I was helping was like, I'm just trying to get my treatment paid and this. And I loved solving people's like insurance paper. I was like, I got it approved. The money's coming.
Yeah, you're okay.
It was very rewarding, and the machines do not work the same.
You get really personally invested, right? And I think the only way to do this job well in a time of such great crisis and fear is just, you actually have to care about the folks who are calling in. And just like the 200 county employees, like at our height, my unit had 200 employees. They worked around the clock, and there were times where we were both activated for COVID and for the fires that was happening at that time, and the toxic air that was resulting from the fires. So I remember having to ask my team members, like, hey, you just did this 12-hour day, but there's a fire warning in place tonight. We're going to stand up, we're going to leverage our existing call center to respond to calls for fire. Can you stay here with me until 5 a.m.? And it was I remember the county executive stayed, the chief operating officer was there. I was there, my team members were there, and there were folks coming, reporting for duty at 3 a.m., at 6 a.m., at night, just round the clock ready to roll, because, when you get hired at the county, you sign an employment agreement. And on the employment agreement, it also says that you agree to be activated as a disaster service worker should that time ever come. And during this time, I was talking to my friends, my colleagues who were getting ready to retire, and they're like, we have never seen this DSW. Like it was this disaster service worker assignment has never been activated in their time. So this was like really new for so many of us, what that meant.
That's amazing. And I really loved how you've laid out all the different services already that the county provides. And this is one of the main reasons why I'm always, why I produce this podcast and why I produce this information, because your local government is where reality, where rubber meets the road. It's not often like you're going to see that the National Guard and all the military stuff, that's in a worse place. The first response is your city and your county. And the way I saw the county and our city responded, there was definitely aspects where we were just unprepared. There's no way to prepare for something like this. And then there are other parts where like, not too bad. Like that's really good. And also, as you've said, now new things exist so that we can reinforce our response in the future.
And I wanted to touch on what you just said about partnerships, right? About the city and the county response. It was a completely joint response. And there were periods where we were on daily calls at 9 p.m. at night, because that's when the day's work had been done, and we were reporting at the end of the day, and we were sharing information with each other. And this was, I hate that we were in this situation, but that was the most unified I had ever felt. And it was so, and I go back to that memory so often that during the time of greatest need for our residents across the board, the cities and the county and the city of San Jose and the county of Santa Clara came together in lockstep. And we worked together, and it was just a great collaboration, great partnership, and just a really great outcomes, and a lot of fond memories and really good friendships and relationships from that.
Oh yes, I have. Your bubble is a special place in your heart after that. And I love that you mentioned social contract, because sometimes when I teach, I kind of use the everyday terms and conditions as, an analogy to the social These are the terms and conditions of your government that you signed in the charter. And so now we're going to start getting into those documents. And you brought a souvenir.
I brought a copy of a charter. We don't print the county charter anymore because we save paper and we live in a digital era. But I am a lover of paper and tangible things. And so this is a souvenir, a relic. Like I think as time goes by, it becomes a historical treasure here. But this is our revised county charter from 2017. And the charter does go through periodic changes as the landscape of need change and the expectations and the requirements, of our local government changes. And so we do move with the times. But here is a copy of the charter right here.
It is updated, but not as often as your terms and conditions.
No, not as updated as our terms and conditions.
So what is this, what is the social contract of Santa Clara County in terms, let's talk about the difference between the county and the city.
Well, so many ways to go about that. I'll start with the most definitive distinctions first. So this is not the be all, the end all, but this is just the starting. The most clear delineation between the county and the city can be found in our health system. We, the County of Santa Clara, operate the third largest public health system in the state. Definitely the largest in the Bay Area. And that is a purely county function. We have a nationally renowned burn unit, trauma rehab center, neonatal care, where really, and as someone who was born there and as someone who gave birth to my daughter at our county hospital, I can attest to the quality of the care there. And we're not just a county hospital, but we're a renowned county hospital across the nation.
Wow. That's amazing.
So that's one. And then the second thing that's really clear, it's a clear distinction between city and county functions, is that we also run the jails. So we do operate a lot of the ecosystem of public safety. So the district attorney and the deputy district attorneys, the DA's office, are county employees. They are a part of the county family, county function. The public defender's office, the deputy public defenders are also county employees. They're part of the county function. And we operate the jails, and we are responsible for the care and custody of those who are incarcerated. We're also responsible for, and this is something that happened in recent times, relatively recent, the last decade or so, that we're also responsible for the successful re-entry into society and community of those who were in our care and custody.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
I would say those are the two biggest distinctions. Now we can get into jurisdictional. A lot of our differences and our responsibilities also land on jurisdictional lines, which means in county speak, it's the unincorporated county and incorporated county. So incorporated county is city jurisdiction. So that means you vote for your council member, you vote for your mayor, you are a client, a resident, a citizen of both the County of Santa Clara and the City of San Jose. Then there are pockets of what we call unincorporated county, where there is no city jurisdiction there. That's going to be, I'll give you an example, East San Jose, up Alum Rock, past White Road, is a lot of unincorporated county at the bottom of the foothills there, and also towards the hillside too. That's an example. And where we have unincorporated county, we, the County of Santa Clara, operate as both your city and county. So we not only deliver our usual county services, but we also act as your city jurisdiction. For example, your trash or recycling, that's through us now at the county. Everywhere else in San Jose, it's going to be through the city. Our public safety, So in an unincorporated county, if you live in an unincorporated county, when you call 911 from that location, dispatch will send the sheriff's deputies, the Santa Clara County Sheriff's deputies, to respond to your call. If you're calling from incorporated county, which is city jurisdiction, San Jose Police Department will respond to your call.
Okay. And do you have the numbers of how many residents are in the unincorporated?
Oh my God, I saw a ledge file that tells us that. I could get you that answer because we're about to renew our trash and recycling and compost contracts. So every house that is serviced by our trash, compost, and recycling services is an unincorporated house.
Okay.
So I could triangulate the number of exactly.
That's great. I love it.
Based on that. Yeah. So I inherited the Office of the Census during the pandemic.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. That was also added to my list of responsibilities. And I know, God, I'll have to go back, but we had a record-breaking level of completion on the census.
Yeah.
Like we had 2020, all the efforts and investments that were made had us reaching the highest number of census count we've ever had.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, let's see. Where were we?
Okay, so we were talking about. So I talked about
jurisdictions.
Yeah, jurisdictions where an unincorporated county, the county operates both. The county will provide both city functions and county functions.
Okay.
So that's where sometimes things get blurred, and I think the question then comes back to like, what does the county do? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then but whatever we do is defined by our charter. Yeah, and then you'll see like when you read through this charter, even though it's a 2017 copy, there are multiple numerous references to the jail, the management of the jail, the maintenance of the jail, the custodial care, our duty, and our responsibilities to supporting the health system for the County of Santa Clara, for Santa Clara County residents.
It's like the instruction manual, and then the 2,000, you said 2,000 employees are
22,000 employees.
22,000 employees. Make this book happen.
Yes, yes. All policy flows from the charter. It is aligned with the charter and allowed by the charter, and we conduct ourselves in accordance with the charter. How our elections are operated, how they're defined, how our districts are defined, right? We have 2 million residents in the county, in Santa Clara County. We have 5 districts. Each district has about 400,000 residents, and every 10 years when the census is taken, we redistrict the lines. And what the redistricting means is that we make sure that every district has the same number of residents. And District 2, my district, the district that I've lived in my whole life, born and raised, is the smallest geographical footprint. It takes us half a city to reach the $400,000 threshold. Other districts have to cross multiple cities before they reach that number.
You got the densest.
We have the most densely populated district. We also have the highest need district. The majority of the county's clients live in District 2. The greatest rates of poverty are in District 2. The highest rates of unhoused individuals, residents, are in District 2. So what I often tell people that the problems and the challenges that exist in the other 5 districts exist and happen in District 2 at the same time all the time. So, and I've been really, I feel like we've been very fortunate. Up to now, we've had a great board of supervisors with 5 supervisors who understand that, who understand that if District 2 is thriving and District 2 is succeeding, that means the whole county will thrive and succeed because we would have cracked the puzzle, that nut for everybody.
Yeah, because the goal of the charter too is to serve everybody.
It's to advance the quality of life and standard of living for all residents of Santa Clara County.
Quality of life.
All right, y'all. All right, everyone. And that is a wrap for episode 1. Again, if you enjoyed this episode, please hit that follow and like button. Give us a comment, leave us some questions, and I will work on answering them in future episodes. Thank you so much for joining us on this new civic walkabout. I'm so excited to be here with you, and until next time.